This is part 65 of ASP.NET MVC tutorial. In this video, we'll discuss deleting multiple rows in an MVC application. We want to provide a checkbox control next to every row. This enables us to select multiple rows. Once we have multiple rows selected, and then once I click this button, we want to delete all the selected rows. We'll be using this table TBL employee for this demo. So the first step here is to add an ADU.NET entity data model based on this table. So let's flip to Visual Studio. Here I have a blank ASP.NET MVC4 application. The first step is to add ADU.NET entity data model. So let's right click on the models folder, add a new item, select data under install templates ADU.NET entity data model, and let's name it sample data model. Click add. We want to generate our model from the database. Click next, and let's name our connection string as sample db context. Click next. This is going to connect to the database and retrieve all the tables, views, and stored procedures. Expand tables, select table TBL employee, and we want our models to live in models namespace. Click finish. This should generate an entity with name TBL employee. Let's rename that to employee. Save all the changes, and let's build a solution so that this employee entity is compiled. The next step is to add a controller. So let's right click on the controllers folder, add controller, and let's name it home controller, and let's use this empty MVC controller as the template. Click add. This should add home controller. Alright, now within the sample data model that is generated for us, notice that we have got a context class and an entity class. The context class is actually called sample db context class, and the entity is nothing but employee entity class that we have. Okay, now we want to use both of these classes within our home controller, and notice that these classes are residing in this MVC demo.models namespace. So let's use that within our home controller. Alright, now we need to pass list of employees to our index view. Basically, we want to display all the employees here, so we need to pass the list of employees. And to retrieve that list of employees, we need to connect to the database, and to do that we have the sample db context class that is generated by ADU.NET entity data model. So let's create an instance of that, and this object has got this employees property, which is going to give us the list of employees, and we are going to pass that to this view. In a bit we will create index view. Okay, now another function that we need here is the delete function. Look at this. When we select multiple employees and when we click this delete selected employees, we are going to delete those employees. So obviously we need an action method which is capable of deleting those employees from the database. So let's go ahead and add a delete method. So let's make a copy of this index action, and let's call it delete. Now to delete employees, let's say I selected 3 employees here, and then once I click delete selected employees, we need to pass their IDs to the delete action method, and the ID of an employee is of type integer. So basically when we select multiple employees, we're going to pass list of the employee IDs. Okay, so we need a list of integers, basically I enumerable of integers. So let's go ahead and include that I enumerable of integers, and let's name it employee IDs to delete. Okay, so how are we going to delete these employees? So db.employees, that's going to give us all the employees, but then out of them let's apply a where clause. So x such that if this list employee IDs to delete, if this list contains the employee ID, then all such employees, no, let's convert them to another list. So all such employees, loop through each one of them using this for each loop, and then delete them. And how are we going to delete them? db.employees dot delete object. So basically what is this piece of code doing? you know, it's checking if the ID that is present here, does that ID match with the employees that we have in the database? If true, add them to a list, all such employees, and loop through each employee and then delete them. That's what this code is doing. And once that is done, save the changes to the database. So db.savechanges. And once we have deleted the employees, what we need to do, we need to redirect the user back to the index action so that we can view the rest of the employees after deletion. Okay, and how do we redirect the user to the index action? Using redirect to action method. And to which action we want to redirect? Index. Alright, so this is the implementation within the controller. The next step is to add this index view itself. But before we do that, to render this interface for each employee, the checkbox control, their name, gender, and email, we need an editor template. So let's go ahead and add an editor template for employee object. Now, we discussed about display templates and editor templates in the previous sessions of this video series, so please watch them if you're new to these concepts. So let's flip to Visual Studio. So editor templates and display templates, they can either reside in shared folder or in a specific views folder. So let's actually add them to shared folder. So first let's create a shared folder, and then within shared let's add editor templates folder. Alright, and then let's go ahead and add an editor template for employee object. Let's call it employee. We're going to make use of Razor View Engine, and we're going to create a strongly typed view against employee model class, and let's select empty as the scaffold template. Click add. So here the model for this view is the employee object. Now, what is the responsibility of this editor template? It's going to generate a checkbox control, name, gender, and email. And all of these need to be part of a table row. Okay, so we need to have a tr tag, and within that tr we need 4 tds. So let's go ahead and include that HTML here. So 1 tr there, and then 4 tds. So let's make a copy of this. Okay, and in the first td, what should we display? A checkbox control. So the first td should display this checkbox. And to display a checkbox, we can use input type equals checkbox. And then the name of this one, I'm going to give it this name. And there is a reason behind doing that. So the name of this checkbox control is matching the name of the parameter that is coming into this delete action method. Okay, that's because when we click this delete selected employees button, okay, we are going to post this form, and then the ID that is associated with this checkbox control, all the if I select multiple checkboxes, then all the IDs that are associated with the with each checkbox, they will be automatically passed into this delete action method. That's going to be done by the default model binder in ASP.NET MVC for us. So that's the reason behind naming the name of this checkbox control the same as this parameter. And then another thing that we forgot to do here is, now when we click this button, delete selected employees, we're actually posting the form. We want to delete the selected employees as part of the post operation. Okay, so we need to decorate that with HTTP post attribute. So let's do that before we forget. Alright, so let's go back to this editor template. So the name is going to be employee IDs to delete, and similarly ID is also going to be employee IDs to delete, and then the value is going to be employee ID. And how do I get access to employee ID? Look at this, the model for this view is employee object, and this employee object has got ID, name, gender, and email properties. So all we need to do is at model.id. So that should give us a checkbox control. Okay, and what are the next things that we need to display? Name, gender, and email. And how am I going to get them? At model.name. Similarly, at model.gender, and finally email. Alright, so that's the editor template. The next step is to actually add the index view itself. So let's go back to the home controller, right click on the index view, add view. The name of the view is going to be index. We're going to make use of Razor View Engine. The model is going to be employee, and let's use empty as the scaffold template because we are going to write the required HTML. Click add. So this should generate index view for us. So the model here is actually just an employee object, one employee object. But what do we want on index view? We want to display the list of employees. So basically the model for this view is going to be IEnumerable of employees. Alright, now we need a form tag because once we click this delete selected employees, we are going to post this data back to the server. So we need a form tag. And how do we generate form tag? We can use begin form HTML helper. And let's wrap that inside an using statement so that we'll have the closing tag automatically generated for us. So let's use the using statement. So at using HTML.beginForm. So this is going to generate the opening and closing tag form tag for us. Now when I post this form, when I click this delete selected employees, what should actually happen? We should post this form to delete action within the home controller. That's when the employees will be deleted. So we have to tell that to the form tag. So there is an overloaded version of this form tag where we can specify that. Look at that, we can specify the action name, the controller name, and what is the form method. Is it a get or a post request? Okay, so the action name is going to be delete, and where is this action present? Within the home controller. And how do you want to perform this? Do you want to do that as part of get request or a post request? I want to do that as part of post request. Okay, so what's the next step? The next step is to actually create a table tag, and then within the table we need headers, select name, gender, and email. So let's create a table first. So table, and let's set a border for table. And then within the table we need table head, and within table head we need a table row, and within that table row we need 4 table heads. Select name, gender, and email. So table head. So let's make 4 copies of this. So in the first table head we want this text, select, next name, gender, and finally email. Okay, so next, after the table head is displayed, what we need table row as part of table body. So let's go ahead and include table body, and within the table body we should display each employee. Now if you remember, we have created an editor template which is capable of displaying the checkbox control, name of the employee, the gender, and the email. So we're going to make use of this editor template. Okay, so within this table body I'm simply going to say at html.editor for model. Since the model, since this editor template name matches with the type name, so the type name here, that's the class name, is employee, and the editor template name is employee. So when we say editor for model, this view is going to make use of that template to render each employee like this. Okay, so now let's go ahead and specify a span tag, a div tag here, and set the style attribute. So let's set font family to Arial. Alright, so with all these changes, let's build the solution and let's navigate to the index view. So now the index view should list the employees with checkboxes next to each one of them. And finally, we forgot to do this. We need, look at this, we need a button control to post the form. So let's go ahead and include that as well. So after the table, we need a button control. Input type is equal to submit, and the value on that should be equal to delete selected employees. Alright, let's save this and let's go ahead and refresh this view. So now we should get the delete button as well. Look at this, let's select 2 of the employees, click delete selected employees, and look at that, they get deleted. Let's quickly check that in the database. Look at that, those are gone. Okay, now in our next video we'll actually discuss having another checkbox here on the header, and then if I select that checkbox, all the row checkboxes should be selected, and if I deselect that, the rest of the checkboxes should be automatically deselected. We'll discuss that in our next video session. On this slide you can find resources for ASP.NET, C# and SQL Server interview questions. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.